Earlier in the show, we covered the death of former First Lady Nancy Reagan. One of her biggest missions was pushing anti-drug efforts across the country with her Just Say No campaign. It was all part of America's controversial war on drugs. But lately, many have been asking if this is a war we should still be fighting. We wanted to get a better understanding, so we sent Tom Hansen on a year-long investigation to learn more.
Police, come to the door! We have a warrant!
We're fighting back on every front against an enemy crossing into our country through tunnels, submarines, drones, even inside the human body. And the death toll is climbing.
I don't want to live my life this way. I'm gonna end up dead or in prison.
One of America's longest, most expensive wars ever.
Hands up! Get on the ground!
The war on drugs. To date, it's cost more than our wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, or Vietnam. So after more than 40 years of fighting, I wanted to find out, are we winning this war? My investigation took me around the world, down a rabbit hole to places few people go.
When you go on patrols like these, do you ever get nervous?
Witnessing things I couldn't believe.
In the bumper, we found 25 to 30 pounds of crystal meth.
An underground world of drugs and violence.
This is a house that was caught in the middle of a gun battle, and you can see that it was sprayed with bullets. People are just using it out in the open. I have to admit, it's pretty shocking.
When you see the scars on your arms, what do you think?
I regret, but I use again and I forget.
I found, like so many others, this war has a complex history. Recreational drug use really surfaced in the US in the 1800s, after the Civil War, and drugs like opium, heroin, morphine, and cocaine were legal.
In the 19th century, so long as most consumers of opiate drugs were middle-aged white women, nobody thought to make it illegal. Cocaine was widely used in the late 19th century. Coca-Cola had cocaine in it until the year 1900.
But because of rising addiction rates and a rising concern of crimes by minorities on drugs, the US passed its first drug ban in 1914, which made it illegal to manufacture marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and morphine. But what's considered the modern drug war didn't come about until the late 60s.
The real beginnings of the modern American war on drugs was Richard Nixon.
America's public enemy number one is drug abuse.
It was a period where drug use was growing. You had a huge cultural conflict between Nixon and the older generation and a sort of younger generation that was being more rebellious. So that's when you saw the dramatic escalation of the war on drugs.
In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
It was the height of the hippie movement. Free love and drugs ruled, and everyone wanted to appear tough on drugs. By 1973, the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, was created to monitor drug production all over the world, and the concept of a drug-free world took hold, what's turned out to be an impossible task.
We've heard the mantra, a drug-free world. Is that actually possible?
No.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
Since 1971, the US has spent more than $1 trillion fighting the war on drugs, filling up half of our federal prison space with drug offenders. Yet nearly 1 in 10 Americans admit to taking illegal drugs regularly. The drug trade itself is booming.
It's a supply and demand business. If we continue to demand the substance, somebody is going to supply it.
In fact, the illegal drug business is a global industry that rivals the oil trade, reaching all parts of the world.
If you dip your hand down almost anywhere from Australia, New Zealand to Europe to the Middle East, you'll find drug markets.
We go after the biggest and the baddest of the drug dealers in the world. Not just in America, any place in the world, we're coming for you if you're dealing hard narcotics.
But many are asking what this war is good for, saying fighting for a drug-free world is a losing battle.
The war on drugs cannot be won. There's no way to win a war against a global commodities market.
A recent report by some of the world's brightest minds, 21 Nobel Prize winners, has called for an end to the war on drugs, saying it's caused more problems than it's solved. An unfair jail system in America, an industry run by violent gangs who operate in the shadows, stronger terror groups, and no major impact on addiction or drug abuse. Is it time for us to surrender?
War on drugs has got to end. It's crazy to keep spending all this money locking people up, throwing money down the drain on approaches that don't work.
At what point would you call off the war on drugs?
I don't think you can call the war any more than you would want to call off the war on poverty. You're not going to get everybody out of poverty. You're not going to get everybody out of drugs, but you keep fighting the war anyway.
Over the next few weeks, we'll take you to the front lines.
Half an ounce of meth, and that's going to land these people some felony charges.
To meet the soldiers.
We're about to check out the spot where one of their members died.
And the victims.
Él es mi hermano. Él está secuestrado el 5 de julio del 2012.
Of the war on drugs. Tom Hansen, Channel 1 News.
To hear from Tom and our producer Demetrius about what it was like to research this series and travel to different parts of the globe to get the story, just head to channel1.com.